It has become a pretty common smear among right-wingers to call anyone who stands aggressively with LGBTQ people groomers, and a Michigan lawmaker perfectly responded to those attacks in a speech that has now gone viral. Mallory McMorrow is a state senator in Michigan, and she took the floor of the Michigan Senate to respond to one of her Republican colleagues who had sent out a fundraising email of some kind calling her a groomer. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the show, this is a very common smear these days because the topic of LGBTQ people and topics within schools has been very prominent lately. I've been using a pretty nasty smear, calling anyone who's like, hey, I think it's totally fine to teach about LGBTQ people in school groomers. And of course, what they're trying to say with that is, oh, you're teaching sexual content is the phrase they use in schools, and so you're a groomer. Now, obviously, that is absolutely absurd because all we're talking about and all we're advocating for is, hey, what if we just allow people to teach that people exist, a certain type of people exist? Would that be so outrageous in a place where you're supposed to learn about the world? And also, schools should be a safe and open place in case people identify as a certain thing and they need to feel not discriminated against. But then somehow right-wingers twist that to being, oh, you're trying to groom kids to be sexual and you're showing porn in schools. So as many people have said, mentioning that, hey, gay people exist, there's some couples that 2 men or 2 women or whatever is just as sexual as mentioning, a teacher mentioning that they have a husband or something if it's a woman teacher. Nevertheless, we hear this attack a lot, but Mallory McMorrow perfectly responds to it. And she just got called in a mass email a groomer of children. Pedophile is what they're calling her. And instead of getting dirty and calling names as well, she delivers a beautiful speech. So we're gonna watch this in a few different segments, but we'll get into the first video right now.
I didn't expect to wake up yesterday to the news that the senator from the 22nd district had overnight accused me by name of grooming and sexualizing children in an email fundraising for herself. So I sat on it for a while wondering why me. And then I realized, because I am the biggest threat to your hollow, hateful scheme. Because you can't claim that you are targeting marginalized kids in the name of, quote, parental rights if another parent is standing up to say no. So then what? Then you dehumanize and marginalize me. You say that I'm one of them. You say she's a groomer. She supports pedophilia. She wants children to believe that they were responsible for slavery and to feel bad about themselves because they're white.
I absolutely love how she said that very clearly. The reason you have a problem with me and you're trying to take me down with these smears is because your whole basis for being cruel to this group of people is parental rights. But I'm a parent too, and my voice needs to be heard just like yours does, and my voice says I want kids to be taught about people in the world. And also, I just want to say before we get into the next clip, someone said this and it really struck me as profound. What many people on the right say is they're trying to propagandize our kids to be liberal or pro-LGBTQ, whatever they say. And what this person said that I was watching was, propaganda is just as much what you say as what you don't allow to be said. And so by saying, ooh, anything LGBTQ, that put that away, you are sending just as loud and aggressive of a message as teaching something explicitly. And so next, she talks about where she came from, the influence of her mother, and what informed her to believe that we should fight and stand for marginalized people.
Well, here's a little bit of background about who I really am. Growing up, my family was very active in our church. I sang in the choir. My mom taught CCD. One day, our priest called a meeting with my mom and told her that she was not living up to the church's expectations and that she was disappointing. My mom asked why. Among other reasons, she was told it was because she was divorced and because the priest didn't see her at Mass every Sunday. So where was my mom on Sundays? She was at the soup kitchen with me. My mom taught me at a very young age that Christianity and faith was about being part of a community, about recognizing our privilege and blessings and doing what we can to be of service to others, especially people who are marginalized, targeted, and who had less, often unfairly. I learned that service was far more important than performative nonsense like being seen in the same pew every Sunday or writing Christian in your Twitter bio and using that as a shield to target and marginalize already marginalized people.
I just cannot. She is awesome. Yes. So I think about this all the time. I was also raised in Christianity, and it always confused me so much because whenever you read the life of Jesus, one of the things that stands out a ton is how service-minded he was and how he did look out for the marginalized groups at that time. And it always just was so confusing to me in church because all people wanted to do, go to church on Sunday, learn the things, recite scripture, but never do what I found to be a very, very, very important part of Jesus' teaching, which was to be loving, which was to pour out, serve people. And it's wild to me that people truly believe, okay, my job as a Christian is to sit here and just simmer in my hatred for all these groups of people that I think are sinful. And I've said this before, I don't think that being gay is sinful or being transgender is sinful or any of those things. But even if you believe it, it definitely doesn't say it's your job to go and oppress people because they're doing sinful acts. And so I love how she pointed out, listen, my mom taught me that being a true Christian, being a follower of Christ, was sometimes I don't show up to church because I'm at the soup kitchen. And for the last clip we're gonna watch, she talks about who she is and why she believes these certain topics should be taught in schools.
So who am I? I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom who knows that the very notion that learning about slavery or redlining or systemic racism somehow means that children are being taught to feel bad or hate themselves because they are white is absolute nonsense. No child alive today is responsible for slavery. No one in this room is responsible for slavery. But each and every single one of us bears responsibility for writing the next chapter of history. Each and every single one of us decides what happens next and how we respond to history and the world around us. We are not responsible for the past. We also cannot change the past. We can't pretend that it didn't happen or deny people their very right to exist. I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom. I want my daughter to know that she is loved, supported, and seen for whoever she becomes. I want her to be curious, empathetic, and kind. People who are different are not the reason that our roads are in bad shape after decades of disinvestment, or that healthcare costs are too high, or that teachers are leaving the profession. I want every child in this state to feel seen, heard, and supported, not marginalized and targeted because they are not straight, white, and Christian. We cannot let hateful people tell you otherwise to scapegoat and deflect from the fact that they are not doing anything to fix the real issues that impact people's lives. And I know that hate will only win if people like me stand by and let it happen.
The point she made about them attacking groups to distract their own followers from the real issues that are impacting their lives. And when I use the word real, I mean affecting their followers. Of course, LGBTQ rights, so real, so important. But for some conservative Christian, that's not affecting their life. Just let people live. Why are you getting all wrapped up focusing on someone else's lifestyle? And I know a lot of people would watch this and say, well, it is affecting me because my kids are being taught this propaganda. No, all we want to teach in schools is, listen, you don't have the right, regardless of your own views, religious or otherwise, to be hateful and discriminate against people because they have a life that is different than yours, because they have an identity that is different than yours. That's it. No teachers are walking around going, everyone should be gay, or hey, you should be transgender. No, but they might go, hey, if you are, that's totally fine, and you can come to me and you will be loved. And if you think that is propaganda, okay, go ahead, homeschool all your kids, live in a cave with just your family, and don't be a part of society. Because if we can't agree to the simple terms of, okay, individual rights, and we should all allow people to live the way that they would like to live as long as it doesn't harm other people. And hey, why not teach kids to be compassionate? If we can't agree to that, then yeah, you definitely can't function in this society. But for everyone else, we can all agree, yeah, we're not going to teach explicit sexual content to young kids, of course. but we can teach about general groups of people that are very prominent in society. But getting back to the important point that she made, the reason that so many of your leaders on the right, Republicans, get you as followers of them to focus on these issues and spend all of your hours going to meetings, protesting CRT, protesting LGBTQ topics in schools, is because if you're doing that, you're not focusing on the fact that they're not helping your lives materially. And I also love how she said, the reason we want to teach these kids about the history, the accurate history of slavery, systemic oppression, is because to be able to effectively write the next chapter, the better, hopefully, chapter of American history, is to be informed on the past. We have to know what happened. We have to know the good, bad, and the ugly so that we can look forward and improve the country. And that's not at all teaching kids you suck for being a certain race or you shouldn't get along if you're black and white. Not at all. And I always like to say there are some radical anecdotes and one weird teacher who should definitely not teach those things. But on a broad basis, what we're talking about when advocating to teach about the racial history of America is just giving an accurate understanding of what happened so that this amazing generation of students can go on to help improve the country and make it the best that it can be and hopefully live up to its promise. So Mallory McMorrow is so awesome. We just don't see many Democrats able to effectively articulate the points that we want them to. She was so strong and passionate and genuine, and that's what we need in our Democratic leaders. That was Mallory McMorrow, State Senator in Michigan, beautifully responding to an absurd smear of her being a groomer by effectively laying out what the left actually stands for and what America should unite around. Here's what else you need to know today. Marjorie Taylor Greene is having to testify at a hearing over whether she should be disqualified from running for re-election due to her part in the events on January 6th. Apparently, Russia's goal with what is being called their second phase of the invasion is to completely take over southern Ukraine as well as the Donbass region. Reporting has come out showing that Kevin McCarthy wanted to get Donald Trump to resign after January 6th, but then his spine slid out of his body and he didn't do that. The first images of the planet Venus's surface in the light have been taken, which may help scientists learn more about the planet. Be well, everybody.